Hey guys, and today I'm going to be showing you how to diagnose a non-functional battery light on a W123, that's a 240D. In my case, my battery light is not working when you put the key in the on position, and the battery is not charging, so I will be replacing the voltage regulator. I will show you how I determined that this was the problem. So let's go ahead and get into it. Okay, so now that we're in the vehicle, when we put the car into the on position, when the seatbelt light comes on and the brake light comes on, the battery light should also be on because the alternator is not running. But as we can see, battery light does not come on. So we can make sure the bulb is not dead. I did this by just simply replacing the bulb. It was there's the part I got is a Phillips. I'll link these in the description and they fit. I just replaced it just to be sure. To get to it, you do not actually need to remove the whole gauge cluster. You can simply just drop this by removing these three little bolts, tabs, and they're behind them, there are Phillips head screws. This will drop down and it'll allow you room to reach your hand underneath, and you'll feel the bulbs for these four, and this is the biggest bulb actually, so you'll be able to know when you're touching it. Take it out and make sure that it's not bad. I replaced mine just to be sure, and it still made no difference. And when the vehicle is running, when I have to jump it, because the battery is dead, which is what is causing this whole, to run down this, I'm only getting about maybe 11.9 volts. So therefore I know the battery, the alternator is not charging or working, and when I turn any electronics on in the car, they either do not function whatsoever, or the battery voltage starts dropping rapidly. So let's get into what to do next. So under the hood, your alternator is on the passenger side next to the air cleaner, and it is right down there. Everything I found online said it was one of the following things. The alternator itself has either gone bad, the brush is inside. The voltage regulator, which you can see right there with that white bit, that is the base of it, or you have a bad ground somewhere on the alternator circuit. The way we can sum this up and know this is that the bulb inside the dash is directly wired to the alternator, and it only comes on when the alternator is not functioning. And if it's not working whatsoever, we know it's a problem with the alternator, because it is not self-grounded anywhere on the system inside the car. It's actually grounded straight through the alternator itself. So what I did is I followed my ground wires and I just checked the grounds on the car, and they all seemed pretty good. Battery terminals were good. And what I decided to do, since the part was fairly cheap, it was only about $17 with shipping, was replace this voltage regulator. It is very simple to do, it is easy and cheap. So let's go ahead and get into how to start. This is the part that I got. It is not an OE part, this is just an aftermarket part. If you want to, you can get a more expensive part. I just got a cheap one because I was not absolutely sure this was the problem. And since it is, if this fails again, then I will buy a more expensive one. But this one seems to work for now. So let's go ahead and get into it. And before you remove the voltage regulator for safety, please disconnect your battery terminal, at least one of them. What I will be using is a short flathead screwdriver. This is the only tool you'll need. I would recommend getting a short one. It is fairly small. I'll link one in the description. But this way you can fit it. There is a screw that is right next to the subframe mounts, and this allows you to get in between so you don't have to go at an angle of any sort. It fits fairly well. I find it easiest to remove the voltage regulator from above and then installing it from below. This lets you see the screws easier from up here, and you'll need to maneuver them underneath. But I just find it easier to remove them from up here. So there's one screw on the side. Let me see if I can show you that. There's one screw there, and on the reciprocal side, if you just follow it, you'll see the other screw. It is right about there. They're both flatheads, so when you take them out, the voltage regulator is spring loaded, not very tightly, so it'll just kind of fall out. Do not lose these screws. Just be aware I have a mat below, so that if they fall on that. And just Okay, so we have the old part out. Here are the screws. They are not too terribly long. They're pretty small, so don't lose them. Here is the original Bosch part with the original Bosch part number. And what we're going to do now is we're going to compare the new part to the old part. With the old part and the new part next to each other, we can definitely see that these terminals that touch the alternator as it spins are significantly shorter. They both have about all of the same spots. We're just going to check everything, make sure they're about the same size, etc. You know, just check everything. I feel this is a good part, so it seems like it's going to fit. So we're going to go ahead and install this. I'll show you under the car how to do that. When we're under the vehicle, we can see this gaping hole in the alternator. That is where the regulator goes. We can see those two discs in there. That is where the alternator rides. I mean, the regulator rides on the alternator as it spins. And these two holes, right there and right there, those are your two screw holes. I did not know what this hole was for. Maybe for a different style regulator, or because they did use this alternator in quite a few different vehicles. Maybe a different vehicle uses that, but you will be using this hole and this hole. When you put it in, the prongs go up, or I should say towards the center of the alternator. So let's go ahead and install it. Okay, so what I've done is I have hand threaded both the screws. And earlier when I was talking about the frame rail being in the way, I was actually incorrect. It was the motor mount bracket. But with the short screwdriver, if I can get the screwdriver to go in the slot, there we go. You can see just how very little room there is for this screwdriver to fit, but it does fit quite well. Otherwise, you'd be going at it from an angle, which is not very nice. So short screwdriver is definitely the way to go here. So let me get this all tightened up and I'll show you afterward. When you're screwing these in, I will suggest screwing the bottom side that doesn't have the little ground strip halfway in, and then screwing this side all the way in. I just find that it seats it a little bit better in there, you know, a little easier. It's not required by any standard, but just my recommendation. So now let's go ahead and go back up into the car and see if the bulb works. In the vehicle, the battery is still dead, so we will not be able to start it, but we can just check and see. As you can see, the light now works. Unfortunately, battery is dead, so I'm going to jump it and we will check the voltage. You should have just about 14 volts. This will also, you would also want to replace your voltage regulator if it is a high voltage problem, as in your battery is overcharging, because you do not want anything over around 14.5 volts, otherwise it's going to charge the battery too quickly and can damage it. So let's go ahead and jump it and see if we're getting the proper voltage out of the battery. Okay, we have the vehicle attached to the vehicle. That vehicle is running, and we let it sit for a few moments. We're going to let the glow plug light go off. That way we have the most successful chance of the car starting. And as we can see, the battery light turned on and then turned off like it was supposed to. Brake light is on because my parking brake is set, and there are no other lights that are not supposed to be on. So let's go ahead and check take the jumper cables off and check the battery voltage. Alright, with the vehicle running, this is your negative terminal, positive terminal, set it to 20 volts. And we can see that we're reading at 14 point, fluctuating just a little bit. That's okay. The battery is quite dead, so this is just fine. That means the alternator is indeed charging, as batteries have a base voltage of 12. So we know the alternator is now working. Alright, so I've turned off the vehicle, and we're just going to check again, make sure that since the vehicle ran and we saw that it was charging, the battery light still comes back on. As we can see, it does. Let's see if it wants to restart now. My starter's a little finicky sometimes. As you can hear, it sometimes just wants to engage, not catch. And there we go. It starts right back up. So that worked. I hope this helped. And I'll link all the things I used in the description. Thanks for watching. See you guys next time.